how why. The first part of that is what, okay? Second part is how, and the third is why. So what, how, why, okay? And this is how I structure it, okay? And it's precisely with these three sections of who you are, okay? It addresses every single one. And so a lot of people have different ideas, and most of them actually work, but a lot of them only address one of these three, okay, when they're trying to like train their mind. And so your motivation is huge, and that has very much to do with your heart and to some extent your will, you know, like your feeling about this, your why, right? How is very much the tactical. It's like, what am I going to do, right? Your will. And what is the rational explanation of what it is you're going for. You know, like, what is it, how am I going to do it, and why? And so, like, it's the why that gives you the rocket fuel. If you don't have a why, well, why do it at all? You know, like, and so it's not that we never have a why. We wouldn't even describe it if we don't have it. But if that's not a focus, then it's not going to be trained into the heart, right? In terms of motivation, a really important thing that you need to know is that people, honestly, as selfish as we are, this is kind of this weird dichotomy, as selfish as we are, and we have this big egos and all this, right? And it's just a natural thing. We self-preservation, we want to be selfish. And at the same time, simultaneously, without other people, life becomes so meaningless that we have like this drive. Even like terrible people have a drive to do things for other people. Like, I will only do so much for myself, but if I think to myself, I can change people's lives, or I can change my son's life, or I can change my wife's life, I can do this for her, then that is like so motivating. Whereas like if I was by myself and I was isolated and I was thinking, well, I don't know, like, why buy the bigger house, or like why, like, honestly, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care. I don't even want to do the business. We'll just do the minimum, live off the minimum, because it doesn't matter.
Right.
Honestly. You know, it just doesn't matter. And so when you really look at it, like when you're talking about a why, when you want to know what your why is, I will say that there's a number of reasons, and there's nothing wrong with being a little bit selfish. That's not what this is about. But generally speaking, if you want to have a why, look to see if it's connected to somebody else. And if it's not, you might have a hard time maintaining that why, okay? But there's other reasons too, like we have a drive for creativity. Don't almost ever have a true drive for money. That's a very constructed drive. There's a book called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he actually talks about how money, motivation, dramatically reduces creativity and the ability to provide results in almost all but a few very small niches. So they give all sorts of examples of how they pay people like a disproportionate large amount of money to solve a problem, especially problem solving. And the money, we talked about internal and external focus or narrow and wide focus. Yeah. Money narrows your focus because it's primarily about you and your own lust for acquirement, right? It's not an open thing. So if you have a money motivation, and sometimes like I've seen this happen a lot where I had workers, even like construction workers, I thought you're doing a great job. And over again, it's the point where I almost stopped doing it. I still do it, but like I'm thinking this person's doing a great job. Give him more money. And like a number of times, at least 5 I can think of, where I gave more money and that person immediately decreased their work and within weeks they were gone.
Wow.
You know, like I literally like, here's some more money. Boom, gone, right? And a lot of people have this weird thing with money. And you have to realize like, yeah, you need money, but that can't be your primary motivation. And if it is, it will destroy you. It's just not a good thing. Versus like gratitude and thankfulness and love and kindness. Those things, you talked about like what would you do in the morning, right? For me, that idea of thinking of positive things, I typically always get on a treadmill, and so I'm getting moving, it changes my body. Like literally I go straight, and second after before I get on the treadmill, the first thing I do is put my headphones on and start listening to the Bible. Second thing I do is I get dressed. And after that, I immediately, and my treadmill is right next to it, and we have like a big walk-in closet with a treadmill. I get in treadmill immediately. And if I don't do any of those things, I will do something else that will not be positive. So I do all 3 of those things. But then, you know, in terms of actually like programming my mind specifically for like kind of like a specific vision for my life, I do, one of the most important things for me is I used to just like kind of focus on gratitude, and it's slightly changed a little bit. For me specifically, it's prayer, right? And singing songs.
Okay.
So typically they're worship songs, and for me, that makes me grateful. Okay? I realize that different people have different beliefs, and regardless of my belief about what is true, I will say that you do need, for practical reasons, to in some way have gratitude. For Christians, that's a direct instruction. You're actually required to be basically thankful all the time, which is the equivalent of being worshipful all the time, right? Like who are you thankful to? You know, and so that affects your entire reality throughout the day. And so, but you want to prime that to start. Like, I can't actually do everything I am and be constantly thinking prayerful thoughts and praying and thankful, you know.
Yeah.
But you can prime yourself so that you imagine all those 80,000 images and thoughts coming up throughout the day. Greater and greater proportions of those are of that variety. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're directing you, and then bubbling up through the day, you think, oh, that's great, I can't believe this happened. You're like, whoa, you know, like, suddenly having a better day, you know? And so that's why you start out that way. For me personally, that's what I do. I experiment with different ways of kind of reviewing, kind of like this training, I call it, of like actual specific things. So the what, how, why, you know? But I continue to simplify it.